Edge banding is easy, right? That's what social media and YouTube said. Iron on, apply some pressure, trim it off quickly, and move on. I thought it would be nice to cover these mostly hidden edges of a storage bed frame, but it's been a complete mess. First, the iron broke, so I had to get a new one. I picked up an edge banding and trimmer at a local box store. I considered being cheap and just using a razor blade, but I spent the extra to get the trimmer trying to make my life easy, and that was my first mistake. With the new iron, it seemed to go on easy enough. When I started trimming it off with the trimmer, that's when things went south quick. The trimmer very much wants to go with the grain of the edge banding, and in areas it isn't cut close enough, and in other areas it dug in and took some veneer off of my pre-finished ply. After it dug in, I reheated and got the bad edge banding off. I can't apply enough pressure and cut fast enough to avoid the risk of it digging into the edge. I was taking my time and paying attention to the grain, but I couldn't avoid ruining the edge. Other areas are not cut close enough and far from sandable. So here I am, partially complete, and trying to figure out how to get this finished. I ran out of edge banding and had to get a new box. I have quite a bit of woodworking experience working on and building wooden boats, but things like cabinets still make me feel like a newbie. This is my first time using iron-on edge banding. I was excited to try it out. So instead of diving right back into my same mistakes, I'm going to do a test spot and try and use a flush trim router bit. Seems like the right tool for the job, but I've watched 3 to 4 YouTube videos all recommending the hand trimming tool. In all of those videos, they apply the edge banding to a single board and not an assembled piece. That may be ideal, but I used a track saw to build this. It isn't perfectly accurate, probably plus or minus half a millimeter or 1 millimeter at the most. But when dealing with edge banding, I thought it best to apply it to the assembled box, and I could sand any minor assembly edges before applying the edge banding. With my test piece, I am mainly checking the trimming options. I also see people tape and iron over. On my initial attempt, I was afraid to iron over tape, thinking the tape adhesive would become gooey and stick to the wood. So let's see. I get the iron hot. When you can watch the adhesive behind start to melt, that's best to make sure the heat is sufficient. This small piece definitely gets hotter than the big assembly when I'm working. Yeah, and the edge banding split, maybe from the heat, so a new issue. And yep, the tape adhesive is a mess, so I don't want to do that. The grain direction is pretty obvious on this test piece, and the trimmer works really well, honestly. Let's try out the router bit. And yes, that works nicely too. I'm undecided on what to use on my bed frame, but let's just get the edge banding glued on and see where we go. I start unrolling the edge banding and get it trimmed about an inch or a little more over on each side. And I'm seeing a seam. Okay, I can work around that. Or not. There are 5 seams in this 25-foot roll. Wow, my first package had none. What a joke. I'm still finding new issues doing edge banding, and I haven't even successfully applied 15-foot. Why do I do this again? A store-bought bed frame is cheaper, but I have this design in my head and I will make it happen. Okay, so I roll out my first piece. I see a good 3 to 4 foot section of fairly straight grain, so let's start with the trimmer. And I'm back to having the same issues. The grain just pushes the trimmer head out, leaving a lip. That's too much to sand, but at least it hasn't dug in and ruined it. Since I'm applying with one side that I should go straight to sanding and trying to just cut one side, there is a larger amount of edge banding to cut off, possibly slowing down the trimmer and making this harder. So time to bail and go to the router. It makes a little bit of dust, but I'm able to finish the frames. There's some minor marks from the bit's bearing, but it should wipe off. Still some sanding, but it is workable. This is all behind drawers, but it's much better than the plywood edge. I've seen recommendations to use a file instead of sanding, but I'm comfortable with sanding and it was easy enough. After an initial sand, I did see some small areas that need a little more heat and ironing, and then I sanded them again. Honestly, in hindsight, I would have just plain ripped and wood glued my own hardwood edging. It would have been quicker and better, but my edge banding approach would be better in the future. Number 1, I would bail on PureEdge and probably try a product from Woodcraft. It costs less per foot, but I would have to ship it. It is slightly narrower and hopefully would have less or better joints. If you don't have an edge banding trimmer, I would go straight to the router bit and not look back. It was pretty easy to hold straight and it never dug into the plywood. If you don't have a trim router, you will need to decide on what trimmer is worth trying. Maybe this fast cap version? I would spend more money on a trimmer. The $12 option I bought was junk. I'll keep chipping away on my project. Aside from this, it's been enjoyable and I'm pretty excited about the storage bed design. I wasted a bunch of time with this edge banding, but I know how I would do it better next time. And that's really what woodworking is about. You don't get better without trying new things and learning from the failures. I hope this was helpful or will be helpful. Best of luck on your projects. Please consider liking, subscribing, or checking out this video on my favorite tool purchase of 2024. It was only $30 and now my most used tool in the shop.